All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you, Tony. Great to have you back. I think we'll see how this whole thing goes. But Tony is here. He was on a little hiatus. I think he was skiing.
Snowboarding, but yes.
So we're running for our lives while Tony is,
I literally flew out of town right when the fire started.
Yeah, nice job.
Thanks, Tony.
I think that's a great plan. Yeah, great plan. Kim is here as well.
Kim, how are you?
We've all been working overtime to try to get you information and also get you a great conversation today, and some terrific guests are going to stop through on a number of different facets of what's happening in Southern California and beyond, California generally. This is a threat not just to the southern part of the state. As you know, we are a live show every day, 11 to 1 in the West, 2 to 4 in the East, and we're so glad that you could join us. We also appear as an audio podcast across many audio platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart Radio, etc. I can tell you this, 2025, so far, not a fan. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Really not into it.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I am not really enjoying much about the new year.
No. Your hair looks shorter today, though.
Well, it's just that Jennifer Aniston hair product that I used.
Oh.
And it keeps my hair kind of flat, which is sort of weird. Yeah. But thank you for noticing. It's I'm just...
girl, you just woo.
Well, I do feel I think the girl in me is very woo. It's true.
Looking good in the face of fire.
We have an investigative journalist joining us in just a moment who will talk about the Malibu and Palisades Fire specifically. The origins may not have been natural. I mean, it seems fairly obvious that the origins were not natural. I say that because of several things that we'll share with you. And then I've received a lot of email because people are aware that I'm in the animal activism community, and there are many emails hitting my inbox asking where can we send support to various animal organizations, because really a part of a lot of this is both personal pets, cats, dogs, birds, etc., fish, and then the large animals that have both fled and have to be in an instant. I mean, sometimes in less than a half hour, loaded into transport vehicles and moved from areas that had to be evacuated. So I have some really great people to speak about that as well. And then at the end of this first hour, we're going to give you the entire hour about the fires in California, origins, personal loss, political aspects to it. We're going to try to cram that all into this first hour. And at the end of the first hour, Courtney will join, and she has an entire list of charities and organizations that are really riding to the rescue of so many Californians and so many displaced individuals and animals, for that matter. And you'll get that whole list at the end of the hour. And of course, because it's YouTube, you can stop it, you can write it down. And then Tony is just so lovely. He has said, I'll put all those links into the YouTube description, so that if you go to our YouTube channel, under this video, you'll be able to just hit it, and it's a hot link right to those charities. You're still up to do that, bud? That's really, thank you. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tony.
So that's the situation as we proceed. My great love affair is with California. I love everything about California. I love the weather, which people get drunk on and they stay for a lifetime. I love the diversity. I love the topography, the mountains, the ocean. I love show business, so I love Los Angeles. I love politics, so I like people who are engaged and who are forward-thinking. And for all those reasons, I continue to adore California. Those of you who are lucky enough to grow up here, sometimes I think you lose track of what a great place this is. I dreamt always of coming here. So this is hard.
I know.
The Mark Thompson Show.
But let's get into it. I have for you an investigative journalist who has done revealing work and is on the trail, quite literally, of what might have been the genesis of the fires, particularly in the Palisades and in Malibu. And I do want to say there's a great 60 Minutes piece last night that a couple of viewers sent me emails about, and thank you for doing so, because I found the email, the 60 Minutes piece, and I watched it last night, and that was a great piece about Altadena. And Altadena is this fabulous community, and you see this foothills community. It's right alongside Pasadena, and this terrific community with such a rich diversity and a rich culture and sort of a small town atmosphere in so many ways, and it's destroyed. And it is its own heartbreak, and we'll be talking about that in the coming shows as well. But CeeCee Woods is an investigative journalist. She's the host of Newsbeat LA, and she's an investigative reporter at thecurrentreport.com and also at the localmalibu.com. Here she is, CeeCee Woods, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This has to be, again, so very difficult. This is a community that you're a great part of. I want to talk about the origins of this fire, and I'm going to play something for you, CeeCee, even as I've welcomed you to the show. Before I even let you utter a word, I'm going to play something for you. Tony, could you play that this one piece that kind of is potentially revealing, and I want to get your comments. Here we go.
I think the Palisades Fire in Los Angeles was caused by arson. Let me show you why I think that. Okay, so I'm on Caltopo, a backcountry mapping app, and one of the premium layers is called Sentinel Weekly, which updates every few days or so, every 2 to 5 days, depending on the satellite's schedule around Earth. Anyways, this image is captured from the 7th, just within hours of the start of the Palisades Fire. You can still, this is the initial smoke plume, you can still see it's very small, and these are all just clouds. So what's interesting is if you stack a layer with the topographic map on it, 1 second. Okay, this is it stacked with the topographic map on it. You can see that this trail goes right through the smoke plume. The smoke plume really starts right around here. That is the Temescal Canyon Ridge Trail. And it just seems way too convenient that the fire started exactly right on the trail just behind this neighborhood. A little too convenient to not rule out arson.
Now I want to ask you, CeeCee, you've really done some digging on this. Was arson behind this fire in the Palisades in Malibu?
So early on in the fire, I was talking to city officials, Malibu city officials, the ones that I'm, close to and confer with all the time. And we were talking about the Franklin fire that just happened last month, the night that they were getting sworn in, just a few hours later. The brand new council members were getting sworn in, and a few hours later, the Franklin fire started. So we were talking about the origin of the Franklin fire just as the the Palisades fire just started. And the council member was telling me that was 100% human started. Let's just put it that way. That's how he said, human started. So that was the Franklin fire. Then he told me the next day that he was hearing reports of that it was started by a human. So we haven't really labeled it arson in both areas. Like the first one sounds more like a potential homeless person starting a fire at night. And then we move now into the Palisades Fire, which I'm seeing reports all over the place, obviously, of arsonists on trails, running out of trails, people catching them lighting fires on trails. Then 2 days after the Palisades fire started, we also had an arsonist over at Leo Carrillo that was caught on the spot lighting a fire. So yes, I think the Palisades fire was absolutely started by a human.
Started by a
Intentional.
human, though, is an interesting thing, Cece, because started by a human could be anything from people with, as you say, kind of setting up an encampment. It might be a homeless encampment,
Yes,
let's say.
yes,
I mean,
yes.
or it could, and maybe I guess I'm asking, does that include a power line falling? I mean, are they eliminating that?
No.
Okay,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I mean, a human started the fire, whether it was purposeful to get warm or whether it was for whatever reasons, a human started the fire, not power lines, not anything. So clearly, if you're on a trail, there's only a couple of reasons to do that. Okay. This was during the day. It was not cold outside. So starting a fire, unless somebody had a lighter and was doing something with it, you know what I mean? Like it could be accidental, but it doesn't seem to be accidental. But I don't have enough evidence, unfortunately, to blame somebody.
Sure. I mean, there's an ongoing investigation, and there's ATF coming in. There are all sorts of federal independent agencies coming in as this investigation continues. And I don't want to necessarily conclude that it was arson. It just does seem in so many of the ways that you've identified as though it was an extraordinary series of events that brought this together. I mean, it wasn't, as you say, it was daytime. It wasn't cold. Mm-hmm. It seemed, though, that trail was the genesis of this fire. Is that fair? What we saw in that TikTok video?
Well, it does seem like the people who have downloaded the feeds from these fire cameras have actually pinpointed it, because what I originally heard was that it started by some type of embers or flame or like little, embers that were flying from a backyard in Pacific Palisades. And I tried to rationalize that and it didn't make any sense at all. This makes a lot more sense. And thankfully we have a lot of these fire cameras around, the Santa Monica Mountains area, especially over on our side after we went through Woolsey Fire. And so there's a lot of similarities in terms of how the Woolsey Fire and the Palisades Fire had some very serious resource issues. Like it's too coincidental. Let's just put it that way.
I want to get back to the Woolsey Fire in a second, because I know you went through that as well. But I just want to mention in the sort of mainstream reporting, there was a small blaze. This is from the LA Times. Near the site, there was a small blaze near the site of the massive Palisades Fire a week before on New Year's Day. Could old embers have been rekindled? Homes that burned in the Eaton Fire appeared to still have power amid the high winds. This is kind of a discussion of the general origins of all the fires that we're dealing with. The Eaton Fire, as I say, those homes that burned did appear to still have power amid the high winds before the inferno sparked. Were down power lines to blame there. A, quote, person of interest was identified in the Kenneth Fire. And the question becomes, are any of these blazes the works of arsonists? Officials so far have been circumspect, kind of the way you're being, careful, but nonetheless pointing to origin and cause perhaps involving people. There are investigations that are just starting now. There's a lot of misinformation floating around, and a lot of people want answers, which is understandable, and we will provide those answers, said the spokesperson for the ATF, which that's the lead agency in investigating this Palisades fire. And their response team, which is one of the nation's most renowned units for investigating mass disasters, they're on the ground now in the Palisades and in Malibu. So that's the state of that state. Can you run some of CeCe's video, Tony, while we're speaking with her? Because she sent us some video, and again, this is, I guess, in the early going, when you sit along the ridge line. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your take on this, I understand from the standpoint of how it started is it's a little hard to say. This is, I think, driving a Pacific Coastal Highway. So you're seeing both sides. The side at the right of the screen is inland. That the side on the left, I believe, would be the ocean side. I think
Yeah, and this
that's
is
right.
the day after. This is the day after, and so embers and little spot fires have been happening for days and days and days after, and that is normal. As far as the January 1st or whatever fire that you spoke of earlier, I can't see embers from that 7-8 days later.
That does seem like a reach. I agree.
Yeah, that to me is a major reach. As this fire progressed, the Palisades Fire, there one of the very first reports of identifying a potential arsonist happened in Corral Canyon in Malibu. And locals noticed a fire that had just started, and they noticed a truck, a very suspicious truck, and they were able to apprehend a young adult male that had firefighter gear, which they are speculating at this point was stolen, and torches and pictures of himself apparently at the Pasadena fire. So that was one of the first reports of arson. And I did report, or potential arson, I should say. I did report that. And actually, I was getting a bunch of flack. Do you know this? Do you know if this person was apprehended? Do you know this? Do you know that? And I said, don't challenge me, because I will never, ever put out information that I have not verified through sources that were at the scene, that were eyewitnesses, and or also witnessed the arrest, etc. So it did, as I proved that, because there was more information that came out about that. Now the same type of situation is happening in Topanga and the Kenneth Fire, and it's happening over and over and over again. And it seems like there is an epidemic of arsonists out there, like never before. Like I've never seen something like this ever. Not after Woolsey. I mean, this is unprecedented.
The conditions in Southern California, and in California generally, but Southern California especially, are kind of unprecedented too. That is to say, the dryness, So it's an arsonist dream if you get off, which they literally do. And there's this sexual perverted thing associated with these fires that they set. So if you're into that, I mean, this is, and so it's a particularly dangerous time. I want to thank you for checking in with us, and I want to stay in touch. I know there's a lot going on there. You're very connected to the politics of these regions as well, Malibu, the Palisades, et cetera. So I would love it if you would stay in touch with us and visit again.
I would love to. Thank you for
CeeCee Woods. Thanks, everybody. CeeCee Woods. Thank you. Thanks, everyone who helped make that happen, because
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was definitely a constellation of events. You need it against the backdrop of how dry things are, and then this incredible natural disaster, which is associated with the winds. They were an immense component. We talked about it last week, and I knocked that down right away, that BS about the water and, the wokeism and all that. I mean, the exploitation for political ends that was associated with this was grotesque and continues to be grotesque. But this Santa Ana event, unprecedented. It wouldn't have been beaten back by any amount of water. You only fight these fires from the air. They're too immense to fight on the ground. Look at these winds. If you're watching now, that is the ferocity of these winds. You can't get me a pumper truck that's got water that's going to make a difference here. These winds are driving these fires, and they're driving them so quickly. Many of you have sent me emails asking about animals. Something incredible happened. I think in a crisis, maybe we don't think. I think in a crisis, you grab what you can. And I think oftentimes when you evacuate, as you know, we lost our house. It didn't burn all the way down. Our neighborhood burned and the house was unlivable. But we had to, we've lived through these evacuations. And you're shaking. I mean, your hands are shaking. You don't realize how intense it is, even if you've planned it. And what's happened, and the unbelievable thing, is that people left their animals behind, many of them. It's an extraordinary notion because it's like leaving a kid behind. I mean, you're these creatures that you're so bonded to. So many of you have asked both about that and also about so many of these animals that were rescued and taken with people who evacuated and where they ended up. I mean, where are the agencies? What are the existing instruments to protect animals that were taken from homes? That is to say, rescued from homes, so taken by those families that were able to get dogs, cats, etc. out. Where do they go? So on the overall question, I've got somebody who's a really great authority. How about it for I believe she's the head of, Judi Mancuso is here. Judi, aren't you the head of Social Compassion? Yeah, President and CEO. There it is. Judi.
Yes, thank you.
You're just the person to talk about, and you're also so politically active. You're just the person to talk about the overall situation. And then, and I'm going to talk in a moment with someone who actually is in there on the ground rescuing animals that were left behind. But speak to the situation with animals and those who evacuated and their animals.
Well, like you were saying, you know, what the number one thing that people, a false assumption that they have is that I won't be gone long, right? So
that's why they leave them behind.
I'm gonna just leave doggies here or cats here. This shouldn't take too long. And then what happens? It becomes, days. They lose their home. They think if they leave a window open so that the cat can escape, that's a good thing. No, you don't know. What we saw when I was on the ground at Hurricane Katrina, the most horrific event that I've ever seen next to this one now, that people thought they had these good intentions of how they left the animal in the home, and it was torture. So the first thing, these evacuations are not over. So we need everyone to take their animals with you. If you are going to an evacuation center that does not take the animals, which many do at this point, then you can go to the shelter, or at least there's shelters listed on the LA County website, LA City website, and Pasadena, that they will hold them for you. They're not going to kill them in the shelter. They're going to hold them because they know who you are and that you're an evacuee. But first and foremost, take them with you. Have a net. I have a net for one of my cats that's kind of skittish that could be under the bed. And if I were to just put that over her and drag her out gently, I have my carrier stacked in my garage ready to go. You don't want to have to use your brain when it's time to evacuate. So you need to have all that staged and ready.
That's brilliant. The net. I never even thought of that. One of the things we have, just as an aside, and I mention this only for others to maybe, integrate it into their lives, is we have the carriers in the rooms where the cats actually live. So they don't view the carriers as anything like outside. Oh my God, this is one more thing I'm panicking about. I know this carrier. I'm in this carrier. I stay in this carrier sometime. So it's just a thing to remember, because normally we used to just put the carriers in the garage or put them in the basement or whatever it was, but now we keep the carriers in the room. So on the shelter thing, are the shelters though filling up with people who say, hey, please hold my cat or dog till I get back? I would think things are just sort of overflowing in Southern California.
Well, one of the first efforts is that these big groups have come in to do moving animals out of the shelter. So they're transporting them out of state. They're transporting them out of the shelter. And that's what Pasadena Humane did. They moved all their animals that were in the shelter out to other shelters, freed up their shelter to bring in all the evacuee animals and the ones they were picking up on the street. LA City has been completely missing in action. LA County, a little shaky, and we can get into more of what all that means and how this should have been and still can be responded to.
So I do want to just ask you what's happening. Like when you say LA City hasn't been there, LA County's been shaky, what do you mean? Put some specifics around that, if you would, please.
Well, if you were to go to LA Animal Services website or to the LA County website, you would find zero information on where to report that your pet was left behind, or how to get resources to go in and get your pet, to assist you, to go do it for you. So in this void, because the city and county are missing in action, there's all these disparate rescue groups who are stepping up and saying, hey, call this number, send us an email. We'll go to the address and get the animal. And some of these people are certified. Some of them aren't. Some of them are just going to get in the way of the police. And now there's tanks on the road. So this has to be coordinated from the top down for it to work. And that is not so hard. And I can tell you how that goes.
Well, I also think that in the same way we all have to prepare, and we talked about it, and having an evacuation plan here, it's part of having an evacuation plan, says Big E 61. Yeah, the state and the city and the county has to have an evacuation plan and a hand in helping those who evacuated. So it astounds me that there isn't something, it's not like F7 on their keyboard. It should be that simple to at least initiate these programs.
Exactly. It should be on the homepage. You get there. And so here's how it should be, that what my group is pushing for. Okay. And there is a group in California that has all this emergency protocol outlined, and they're called Cal Animals. I've been working closely with them. There's a shelter system that was built by people that were in the Palisades Fire that are rescuers, called Shelterly. So let me give you an overview of how it should be, in hopes to get our local governments to step up and make this happen, because it's not too late. We're still at the beginning of this. So on their website, they need a place to capture, I'm Judi, I live here, I left this pet behind, please go rescue. I'm at this number, this email address, boom, right? Then what happens is it goes into a database that then it gets dispatched to certified rescuers, either animal control or FEMA and other certified rescuers that go out in the field. They're escorted, if they need to be, by National Guard or the sheriff for safety protocols. They go to the address, they search for the animal, they find the animal. I mean, we've been finding animals. Yesterday, our rescuers found that dog Oreo that was, a wonder on Instagram and now on all the TV shows. So you either find the animal and then bring it back and reunite it, get it to a vet, or let's say the animal's not there, you leave out food and water. Okay.
So this is, you're saying there should be a central clearinghouse for this. Hey, I'm going to lose him in a second, but I'm just going to bring him into the conversation. Billy McNamara is one of those people who's on the ground doing work. And I know you know Billy, Judi, because he is...
we've been working together, yes.
And Billy, I know you've only got a quick second. You've really been, from the very beginning, through all of these areas, looking for homes that have been abandoned with pets, or pets that are just in the wild. Give me the state of the state, if you would, please. You're all part of this animal advocacy network.
Well, it seems like things have died down a lot as far as the fire goes in the Palisades and the Santa Monica, Malibu, PCH area. I did notice last night when we went in, there is a heavy presence of National Guard now. The National Guard are in front and the police are behind them. So you have to go through the National Guard, and it's not so easy. Last night we did go in because there was 4 cats that hadn't been fed since, I can't remember, whenever the evacuation was for that area, up in the upper Mesa, Santa Monica. And it was, luckily there was a sergeant at the barricade. The private said, nope, nobody goes in, period. I don't care who you are. And then the sergeant here said, "What's going on?" And they said, "These guys are gonna help feed some cats." He goes, "Let them in." And then that was it. And so we went in, and so it's pretty quiet as far as that's concerned. We've been going through Aaron Christensen, AC, who I'm with right now. He's just getting the van set up. He of Animal Advocacy Network and Emergency Animal Response something ears. I don't know what it is, but anyway, he met this morning with the head of OEM, Kevin something or other, McGowan, I believe, who is texting him a special thing. So he'll have it on his phone that he can show the National Guard, which allows us to go in. So basically, it's looking for animals or putting food and water down around where the ruins are. I hate to say it. We went in, and people give us addresses to go check on their pets. And I hate to say it, we've had more losses than victories. And some of the losses are pretty disturbing, which I've never seen anything like it.
It's heartbreaking.
I'm guessing this is what Pompeii was,
Yeah, I've watched some of your stuff. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And so, but yeah, it's been a very difficult situation. Yesterday I'd been looking for, because of Simone Reyes will not stop texting me, "Billy, this cat, this dog, Oreo." So I had made AC. He does mostly large animals. So I've done a lot of horses with him, pigs, chickens, peacocks, which are very dangerous. That was scary, actually. And I'm usually not scared of any animals. I did exotic animal rescue with Allison Eastwood from Eastwood Ranch Foundation. So I'm not afraid of grizzly bears. I'm not afraid of Bengals, but peacocks, forget about it. They're very, very vicious. And I don't blame them. By the way, Oreo. So I was at the hospital where they brought Oreo yesterday. So I greeted Casey, that's the owner, and Oreo. And yeah, that's it right there. And so Oreo is quite ornery, and I can understand why nobody was able to. They Mark Ching had to take the owner in with the owner's other dog, Casey, in order to get this Pomeranian who is way more vicious than a pit bull. I understand he was super scared, but I told everybody, I said, once I met Oreo, I said, well, listen, guys, I don't think he was ever in any danger of coyotes. This dog can hold his own. He's a fabulous dog. And so it's been, these things are happening constantly. We're going back in today for a dog as soon as I get off this interview, and a couple of cats. And if people want to send AC their addresses or phone numbers, they can do that. I think you can contact him on Instagram. Animal.
I actually have the telephone number that has been getting you guys the addresses. So I was going to give that out.
Oh, okay, good. Is that his 800 number, his hotline?
See, this is Mark. So this is the problem: is all these disparate numbers and groups.
Right. I need one clearinghouse. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so you see it in action right now because.
But here's what's going to happen: the Santa Anas are coming back. There's another major Santa Ana event. It's going to kick in, depending late tonight, tomorrow through Wednesday. I'm desperately afraid of a repeat. It looks like it may be 20% less ferocious than the last one, but we're going to be having this conversation again, and you guys are going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting again. So where can people reach you?
Organized, yeah.
Yeah. So where can people reach you? Can we go ahead? Is it?
There's a couple. So there's a couple of ways. So one of the numbers, and this is the problem, is 310-808-5943. That is Viva Rescue that has been dispatching to AC and Billy and others.
Okay, what is the number again? We'll post it at the end of this hour, everybody. I didn't expect it. Yeah, go ahead.
310-808-5943.
308-5943?
310-808-5943.
Kim, you're getting this down, please? Okay, then there it is. It's already on screen. God, very well done.
And so we are helping with the administration of that data, our team, so that it can go to AC, who Billy is with right now, and others. But this should, again, This should not be on the rescue community to have multiple numbers, multiple people.
Here's the problem, though. Just so you know, here's the problem. And thanks to Elon Musk, who personally delivered a Starlink to AC the other night. And I think he's bringing AC a Cybertruck today, personally. By the way, I'm going to give a huge shout out to the mayor of Santa Monica, Lena Negrete. She set the whole thing up. She came over to AC and said, "What do you need?" He goes, "I need a Starlink." She goes, "Let me call Elon." And she called him right there. And within 15 minutes, they had delivered the Starlink. So when we're inside, there is no cell service. There is no GPS. So without that, we first of all we can't chase down addresses, and we can't receive or make calls. Now that he has the Starlink in his rescue van, we can take calls. So he has an 800 number, which I don't want to go off this thing because I think it shuts me down on the thing, so I can't tell you.
Well, if you can just
text it to me.
Yeah, text it, and we'll get it on the screen at the end of the hour. At the end of the hour, we're going to have a lot of stuff, a lot of information. Okay.
Okay, great.
So Billy, this is, and I know I'm going to lose you here in a second, but just this is the way Judi and Billy are working in this sort of same space. You're trying to get into areas, and you're not allowed in areas unless the sergeant who happened to be there at that instant that you were relating says, "Oh my God, you sure let them come in to feed the cat." They're not letting anybody in. We suffered this as well in our evacuation area. We evacuated, and they wouldn't let us back in. They won't let residents in. They won't let anybody back in. And so if there are animals there that you either couldn't be wrangled in the instant or were left behind horribly, whatever it might be, there's no way to get them nourishment and for them to survive. So what is the answer there? How is that puzzle solved?
I can tell you, it's that we have asked for a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the city, with the county. And what this does is it gives authority to people who are certified, like AC and others that have FEMA certifications. And we have a top rescuer flying in from New Jersey right now, FEMA certified, that allows us into these jurisdictions so that we can do this work professionally and answer these calls. Because otherwise, these animals are going to die of hunger, they're dying of their wounds, and we need to, time is of the essence. So I have a call to action that I sent you that we need to get Mayor Bass and the county supervisors to approve animal disaster responders and mutual aid. That means that a centralized computer system, a centralized number, a place where people can enter these lost and animals. And we need immediate assistance, like Billy is talking about, in helping them to get into these areas. And so those are the things that have to be done right away because time is of the essence.
Well, let me just say one thing. I just want to give a couple of off-the-record pieces of advice to people in the future. So when these things happen and you're asked to evacuate, or you're at work, like what happened, I think Monday morning when I went to get those cats, they're not allowed back in. So now, if it were me, I'm not making judgment on anybody because a lot of people don't know how to do this. But if it were me, and what a lot of people I saw doing, you got on a bicycle. And you bicycle right by the barricades. The cops usually don't. That's how, by the way, that's how Casey, Oreo's, he had done that a few times to try to find Oreo. Eventually he did get stopped. But you can, in the beginning of a thing, you know, it's scary when the firefighters aren't there. I've learned when I was in the Woolsey fires, taking those horses out and all that stuff, I learned, and the firefighter told me, when they made me come off the hill, they said, follow us down. And I said, what about the horses? He said, listen, here's my advice off the record to you. As soon as you see us go back up, it's safe. Follow us up. And then you could do whatever you want. I had to wait 2 hours, and then I went up and the horses were alive. So there is, and I probably shouldn't say that. I'm probably saying stuff that probably is not politically correct because they want to keep people out. But if it was my animal, dog or cat, I'm going on a bicycle. And I saw some people last night up in Upper Mesa. They hiked in. Homeowners hiked in on their own. They get right by the National Guard. So I'm just telling you, in an emergency, if it's like a child to you, like it is
because
for me.
also, Billy, that's also how the looters are getting in. And that's why there's tanks now in front of streets, all in Altadena and whatnot, because the looters were coming in and still are via e-bike, hiking in, and bicycles. And that's part of the problem, Mark, is the National Guard, the police, they don't know a real rescuer.
Well, that's why the certification of rescuers is so important, and that's why you need that memorandum of understanding. Yes. Guys, I so appreciate it. Billy, I've seen your work for years, and not just in the last week, and you're an amazing example. So good luck, man, and we're in touch, and please, when the dust settles, come tell us again about a story with a nice Hollywood ending. Okay. Thank you so much, my friend. All right, Billy McNamara, everybody. And Judi, thank you. I'm going to post, there's your social compassion in legislation.org. That's Judy's main website with her organization. But we are going to have a number of different websites and organizations that we're posting here in just a couple of minutes, and we'll have them under this video as well, and there'll be hot links to it all. That number again, we'll post again. The number is, if you are in Southern California, you've had to evacuate and you've left an animal behind, or you're aware of an animal left behind. Is that essentially what the number is?
That's it. And you want to say, so people are texting pictures, giving their address. You know, I mean, one I saw that was so sad. The woman says, you know, okay to break in the front door. When our rescue team got there was no front door. It was ashes, and she left behind her cat. But the house next door, Mark, was intact. So what our rescuers did is they left the food outside and water just in case that cat is hiding. So that's another part of it.
It's 310-808-5943 for those people who are listening and not watching. 808-5943, area code 310. I appreciate it, Judi. I'll have you on the air with me on KFI Radio this week, too. You can get the word out to more Southern Californians.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the work you do, and thank you for joining us.
Mark, I wanted to tell you, we had 3 arson events here in Laguna Beach in the past week.
Is that right? And they know they're arson events because they actually apprehended them, or they were.
They haven't told us if they got the person, but they had forensics done. It was absolutely arson, and there was 3 attempts.
Yeah, they can find the arson materials, obviously, even if they can't actually get the perpetrators. So
that's right.
That's extraordinary.
Judi
Mancuso, love your work. Thank you, love. See you. Bye-bye. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Extraordinary people, extraordinary time in California, and it is, as I say, sadly not over. They say now, Kim, 24 deaths. Is that right? The numbers just keep going up.
Yeah, 24 at this time. So sad. And you
Dozens
wonder,
are missing as well, they say.
You hear stories about people running for their lives and leaving their pets behind, and it seems unfathomable to people who love their animals, but when you've got fire, raining down on your area, I can see just running for your life and not thinking. So I get it.
It's why you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
But to your point, sometimes all of your preparations evaporate in the instant. But it is true that if you make substantial enough preparation, there shouldn't be a lot of those kinds of situations. I just learned something here. The net is brilliant. I never even thought of that. Because, the cats will hide under, and dogs for that matter, will hide under the bed. Small dogs will hide under the bed. They'll get way under there, and you can't reach them. And that net is absolutely brilliant. And I saw there are also these pet kind of sedatives that will help make the animals a bit more pliant. So there's that as well. Thanks to our guests. And look, there's a lot more to come as the week unfolds. I'm, as I say, quite concerned with any number of things, but this next Santa Ana event looks pretty brutal as well.
There's more winds coming, right? When is the peak of that happening?
Well, I mean, I was going to ask you what the latest forecast is. I've kind of been coordinating some of this other stuff, but I think generally, well, Courtney is here, and here it is. Dangerous fire risk through Wednesday.
Right.
Thank you, Tony, if you're calling that, if it's you who's calling that up. So you can see an extreme risk through Wednesday, and that's in many of the same regions that have been affected.
This is the word from the National Weather Service. Extreme fire danger will continue through Wednesday, as you mentioned. The red flag fire warnings are for the extreme of the extreme fire weather scenarios. In other words, they say, and this is from the National Weather Service, this setup is about as bad as it gets. Stay aware of your surroundings, be prepared to evacuate. Anything that can spark a fire will likely spark a fire.
And of course, I can always count on Mars. You live there and expect Kim to get the forecast? It does change hour to hour, Mars, so I just wanted to see if any of the parameters change, and I've kind of been scrambling. So, but yeah, so everything seems
It's just, I ask you because
consistent.
it seems, I mean, I have the information, but it seems rather silly for me to give it when I got the weather guy sitting right next to me.
Well, I do have the background in meteorology, but these are so I can explain the dynamics behind it. And when it comes to official forecasts that are life and death, I like to sort of default to the meteorologists that are there at the National Weather Service. I had a plan, and we're going to go with the plan, which is to bring on Courtney, which I'd like to do. Courtney, thank you for being here. Before I get to some of what we're going to be talking about, which is the human toll and charity and outreach, I wanted to mention the looting. It was alluded to in the conversation, and Kim even alluded to it, I think, or Judi, I guess it was, who alluded to it in the conversation with Billy, that, one of the reasons you need these National Guard people in place and law enforcement people in place is because there are a lot of bad people. I mean, it's funny, Courtney and I were talking, or saying, these fires bring out the best in people, and we've been in tears. You can tell I'm kind of on the edge of tears constantly in the last week. We're underslept. We're very emotional. We're very much affected by all of this, literally affected by it. But when we see the acts of kindness, they bring us to tears. But it also brings out the worst in people. And this is one of these crews going into the hills. This is obviously a really nice house. And this is from the ring camera of one of these people who is in the hills, who had to evacuate, and their, clearly immense place is being ransacked. They caught 4 people who were, again, they've been disguised as firefighters and disguising themselves as residents. And it is an extraordinary thing to think that there are even organized gangs who might even be setting fires, and then when people flee, they move into the evacuated areas. All of these things are out there, and so even as we are moved to tears as we're seeing the acts of kindness and how these situations do bring out the best in people, we're moved to anger and to another level of disgust when we see the way in which people organize around such tragedies and then try to exploit them. These are 2 people in handcuffs sitting on the sidewalk just outside the Getty Villa. This is in Malibu. Deputies searched them, and they were dressed as firefighters. Okay, you can see one guy in the yellow slicker. It's again, extraordinary is the only word that comes to mind. I mean, it's just despicable in the extreme. So, I mean, all of that is out there, and it's against that backdrop that we give you some information on how you can help. So now,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Our plan is to give you some information as to how you can help. Courtney, you've been looking at, you're amazing. I mean, you've really followed so much of this and the human toll, and it's funny, Courtney, I was noticing in the conversation with Billy, he talked about how Elon Musk actually brought a Starlink, a connection out to many of those who are working to rescue animals there in Malibu. And I thought, wow, that's great. I mean, it's amazing. D. Elliott actually said Elon did a good thing, hard to believe, but I wish he'd do that also in Altadena. And I wish, in some of these other areas, I don't mean to, I feel like a little bit of a jerk for saying it that way. But the Palisades and Malibu is just one facet of this entire region that has been devastated by fire.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have many positive things to say about Elon Musk. He hasn't given any money. I mean, it's very sad, the number of organizations and billionaires that have donated money toward this.
Yeah, Tony, you have that graphic.
And
the billionaire graphic is still pretty easy to understand.
Late to the game, he brought Cybertrucks and Starlink. And then if you look at Gavin Newsom's post on X yesterday, Twitter, he was Elon was basically like lying to the firefighters. I mean, that I just don't have anything
story.
positive.
Can you tell me what that story is? I don't know what that is.
Something about the access to water and how he was misconstruing what the access to water was and the reasons why there might have been limited access to water.
I see. He's pursuing the lie about how there's not enough water, et cetera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he brought Starlink.
But just on the point, leave Elon aside, there are many rich people in America, more than ever before. And these are billionaires. And it's a stark realization that none of these billionaires, while they rip off checks and wire money to the Donald Trump inauguration, have sent money to this unfolding tragedy in California. Donation totals for 2025. Amazon gives $1 million to Trump, nothing to the LA fires. Google, $1 million to Trump, nothing for the LA fires. Meta, $1 million for Trump, nothing for the LA fires. Are you picking up a trend? Microsoft, $1 million for Trump, nothing for fires. Apple, Uber, $1 million each for Trump, nothing for the fires. But then who contributes to helping out people who have been affected by the fire?
Taylor Swift.
$10 million from Taylor Swift.
And Selena Gomez, who's also a billionaire. She gave $5 million. Also, this bumps up against Zuckerberg's media tour last week, totally tone deaf, taking advantage of the fact that there's the ban. It looks like the ban on TikTok is going to move forward. And so he's gone on this press tour, including trips to Mar-a-Lago and Joe Rogan, to talk about how they're dismantling any sort of oversight on fact-checking on his platforms. And he is thinly veiling this with like free speech, but it's horrific. I don't know if he said anything about the fires, but it does not seem at this time as if Meta has done anything to support these communities. The whole thing's awful. And also the Republican representatives of California getting away from the fire and going to Mar-a-Lago. It's horrific on so many levels. And it is why today I can bring information on how we can help firefighters and first responders, those that have suffered an unimaginable loss, and also animals that are being rescued and cared for and their welfare needs met here in the county of Los Angeles.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned this. So having just told you that, let's quickly now put up a list of charities. These are reputable fire-related charities to which you can contribute. And many of you have written, and we have the greatest audience ever.
Do we have the links that I put together?
Yeah, Tony, if you have the...
just because I can walk you.
What's going to happen here? Go ahead.
Right. So the list of links that Courtney put together is amazing, and all of that is in the show description. And then Tony is going to go, as Courtney mentions, each link, he will be flashing a picture of that website and what it looks like when you get there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll just cover a couple of these because I don't know how much time we have, but...
So we don't have the actual screens with all of those websites in the list. We can't put that up. Any of the ones that she sent.
It'll be just a picture. No one will be able to click on them. So
right,
that's why we put them in description.
Okay.
Right. Okay. This might work better. Go ahead then.
So the initial organizations. So all of these organizations have been vetted through.
Tony, I get it. Go ahead.
USA Today, NBC, KTLA. I will say, though, do your own research. So donate to organizations that you feel confident in that the money will get to those that the money is intended for. But these have been vetted. There is one list that has been organized by the incredibly positive and and sort of technology savvy community on TikTok, which I will get to, which includes GoFundMe's. But the rest of these organizations have been vetted by major media companies. So the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation is an organization where the funds go directly toward those first responders, those on the front lines, as well as the California Fire Foundation. The Anti-Recidivism Coalition is an organization that has a certain mission, but in the spirit of what's happening now, which is that we have 800 incarcerated people on the front lines fighting these fires, making $5.80 an hour. The Anti-Recidivism Coalition is giving money to those incarcerated, those prisoners and their families.
I should say one thing just on that, and we'll talk more about prison labor, because it's a desperately needed integral part of fighting fires. And this might surprise some, but maybe not many. The prisoners actually, and again, I know my progressive brothers and sisters are going to be up my A about this, but they feel wanted, they feel needed, they feel connected with society. They're treated like colleagues. They're not, they say, well, it's slave labor. They're not treated as slaves. And there are interviews across YouTube with prisoners who are working these fire lines and working these back lines. Listen to what they say. They feel as though there's a worth that is ascribed to them that they don't get in the prison system. They're not treated as a number. They're treated as I say, a teammate. And in that way, these prisoners are an integral part of things. And of course, they're undercompensated. But in another way, they feel as though they may be securing a better future for themselves. So that's just a word about prison labor. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, and there's a deep appreciation coming from the community that they've articulated in videos about how much it means to them. Even a cursory search, you'll find some really powerful photos and videos of, they're mostly young men, I mean in their 20s, on the front lines of these fires. And it's hard not to react emotionally to their bravery. So those are several firefighter-related foundations where the money goes toward those that are on the front lines and fighting fires. And that's not to ignore the thousands of firefighters that are coming from different states and different parts of the world to help us here.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing. Many of the countries that Donald Trump has, disparaged, they've been sending thousands of firefighters to help California. It's a remarkable thing. It's
incredible. I saw videos of firefighters from Africa, from Mexico, obviously Canada, but it's moving, and I don't want to get emotional, but it's moving.
Yeah. So we only have another minute or so. So let's quickly
just the next couple. There's donations to families and first responders. There's community foundations. There's the Red Cross, specifically the Los Angeles division. There's the Center for Disaster Philanthropy. If you look there, there's a link, and it goes directly toward the California Wildfires Recovery Fund. So most of the links I've provided go directly toward the fund that helps for the California wildfires. There's the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank. There's Global Giving. And then there's an organization that USA Today had that I had not heard of, but it's called Give Directly. And this is relief specifically for low-income survivors. And so they send cash to LA families on food stamps based on their location, which means that they look at their zip codes and they look if they are on food stamps, and they will send the donated money directly to them during this horrific time. And so that's Give Directly. And there's a link there associated with the LA fires.
That's terrific, because I think there are a lot of low-income people who've been affected by this, and they now are rendered homeless because of what's going on, and they're not getting a lot of play.
And
so that's called Give Directly.
Give Directly, and there's a link there. And in that spirit, I don't know who the creators of this list are, but it is all over TikTok. And what they have done is everybody's searching on how to give back directly to families, especially those families that don't have anything, that lost everything. And this in particular is some of the families who suffered in the Eaton fire. And so the GoFundMe is an organization of links in Google Docs that are being distributed by influential people and civilian journalists and civilians in Los Angeles who want to help. And it's incredible. It is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of GoFundMes that have been put together to help persons, people, individuals, people, and families that have suffered and been affected by the LA fires.
That's extraordinary that they put that all together.
And the sophistication of this document, the links are there. It'll show you how many donations have been made, how close they are to reaching their goal. And you can look through that. You can read about the families or the people, and you can decide who you want to donate to. Now, Mark Duplass is a filmmaker and an actor who I adore. And he said the most thoughtful thing on TikTok, which was this. His advice when providing these links was, if you have $100, don't give $100 to one family. Give $10 to 10 families, because it is also about a sense of hope. And when a family looks, and there are hundreds of people giving them money, it's just, it's hopeful. So
that's what I was saying before. I mean, these acts of generosity and the way to which people are extending themselves, it's moving. You can't help but be moved. And the firefighters too. We were looking at a helicopter video the other night. It was weird. I mean, just watching. It was. I think I sent it to Tony. These chopper pilots flying into these conflagrations, and we were watching. We burst into tears.
Yeah,
incredible.
It's tough. And then the last, also Jose Andres is here. He's here with World Central Kitchen, but that's important because he's really bringing in a lot of influential chefs in the area, and they are making a ton of food for first responders and families affected by the wildfires. You can donate there. There's a link there to his organization. And the final group of organizations that quickly talk about are animal rescue and welfare. The World Animal Protection U.S. organization has a list of animal shelters and rescues that you can look at, and they're divided up into cities and regions. So you'll be able to go there and look to support however you're able to support the welfare of these animals.
And what's that called again?
World Animal Protection U.S., and there's a link there that goes to show you all the
different
animal
ones.
Yeah. There's also a disaster response fund that they have as well. And
those are all the different areas and regions in Southern California, because you may look, some you may feel like I've already got, money. Let me go to some of these areas that don't have money. So it's all there for you. And again, all of these things that Courtney has talked about, all of these links, Tony is a hero. He's going to put them all under this video, which is just the coolest thing. And you'll be able to hot link, click on it, and it'll take you to any one of these various locations that Courtney has talked about in these charities.
And I think there's Pasadena Humane Society has been talked about a lot in the
They're
press,
terrific,
which is great. They're terrific. Social compassion in legislation was obviously Judi was on earlier. There's Kitten Rescue, Best Friends Animal Society, Wags and Walks. There are a lot of organizations and rescues that are taking in animals now and looking to protect them while their owners find housing, and also for those animals that have been displaced, looking for fosters, as well as money. I mean, the thing that I see most is that people are very charitable. People are bringing items, whether it's animal shelters or to organizations that give food and clothing to those that have suffered so greatly in these fires. But money is really what these organizations are looking for.
Narek by the Sea says, my company is matching donated funds. Check with your company. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you. Yeah.
Tough
Thank
times.
you for doing this. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Love you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I hate to cut off my own other half like that. I know she's got more, but I've got no time. I mean,
what?
I know. I'm sorry. It was kind of an awkward moment, but I've got I've got a big name on the other line type thing. And here we are crying and talking about where we're going to send our money. And I got to make this pivot. I mean,
every link that Courtney put together is listed in the show description. So you'll find it there, and you'll find it under any separate video that we pull with Courtney on it today.
Love my Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
You really have ridden back in. He's off for a few days, and now we're dropping
Kim
a world
did
on
the
him.
links, so I was bringing up pictures. So it was a team effort. Thank you, Kim.
It was really good. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Tony. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, you know what we're going to need? We're going to need help. It's going to be a political mess and challenge, and it is not over. As I say, there's another event coming this week. Santa Ana event is what I'm talking about. And we'll need buy-in from the federal government, which is now going to be wrought with complexities that we've never seen before. So into this, we bring a guy who is so well acquainted with both Sacramento, California politics, and then the federal government and the way in which we will connect there. He is the political analyst for iHeart Radio and across the CBS television network of stations. How about it for Gary Dietrich? Well, sir, as I say, let's start in California, and then we'll get to the whole Trump thing and how you play that, et cetera. But there's a lot of BS out there, I think, Gary, about the degree to which there was money and strategy when it came to preparation and preparedness for this insanely, record-breaking dry winter, and now we face these Santa Ana winds. I wonder if you could speak to some of the specifics there. I say BS because I think there is into the zeitgeist sort of like, well, they've got all the money, they've diverted it to everything from the Delta smelt to, DEI to there wasn't enough money to keep the reservoirs maintained. A lot of that is just not true. And yet it'll be against that messaging that Newsom and the Democrats who run California are going to have to forge some kind of strategy moving forward.
Well, first of all, Mark, what a difference a week makes, huh? Since we talked last Monday till now, let me just state the obvious, but it's important to state. The human cost in this, the things that Courtney so eloquently was talking about with both people and animals, the environment, those things have to take center stage. My heart goes out to them. People that don't know my background, I spent a lot of time in disaster zones. I started with right after Hurricane Katrina down in the Gulf. This is over a decade and a half ago, but I've been in hurricanes in Florida, fire zones, many of them in California. I know what this feels like. I know what it's like to be boots on the ground. So I just want to say to start, Mark, for you personally, many of our listeners and viewers who probably have direct connections, it's just a horrific situation. Let me tell you that I understand that. I understand that very personally. All right, next, let's go to the California /national/federal conundrum, conflicts, consternation. This is not uncommon. I will tell people if you go back to the George Bush days and dealing with Hurricane Katrina, you saw then, the examinations that began right away, the recriminations that began right away, if you remember, Mark, related to FEMA and the federal response in New Orleans, the local mayor's response, the governor's response in Louisiana and beyond. This happens all the time. It's sad, but it's sort of the nature of politics. So let's try to filter some of this down if we can real quickly, all right? As often happens, it is not black or white. In other words, is it all Newsom's fault? No. Is it all Karen Bass, the mayor of LA's fault? No. Are there some responsibilities that need to be examined in an accountable way? Of course, that has to happen, right? So I think it's important to remind people that that's the case. It's never all one or all the other. Almost never do you find that in the governmental and political arena. So I think that's important going forward. There's going to be some very important questions that are going to be asked, and they should be, right? what preparedness was done, wasn't done, what budgeting was done properly, what cuts probably should not have been made. I mean, you're even hearing this between, as you know, Mark, the LA mayor and the county fire chief. You know, look, we didn't have adequate resource, budgets should be cut. So let's just start with that's very important, and it's going to play out in the days to come. Now, one last thing, just as an introduction, is this going to always be forever and ever, amen, Washington versus Sacramento? No, it's not. I'd be surprised if Vance and or Trump don't come to the disaster zone at some point. I mean, they are completely wrapped up, of course, in an inauguration that's going to happen a week from today, and he's not even officially the president yet. But I do expect, as we saw in the Paradise Fires, when we saw Newsom and Trump walking together through that fire zone, and I was there just the day before that happened, I think that is going to happen. And what the outcomes are going to be, anybody's guess as of now.
So I'm seeing high-profile Californians and people with big holdings in California. I'm talking about the tech bros, et cetera. They're all at Mar-a-Lago, as you say. And they have thrown money at the Trump inauguration. $1 million apiece seems to be kind of the number that they've all settled on from, Zuckerberg and on down. I went down the list a little before you came on. Google, Microsoft, they're all popping off for $1 million. Bezos, the same. So it's extraordinary to me that there is no effort to get money out to Californians, so many communities in need. Now, maybe they'll step up. It's early in the game. As I say, the game is really likely to have a lot more downbeats than it has now. But it's sad, I think, in a way, and I speak as a Californian this way, and I talk to you as someone who's been, immersed in California politics for so long, that we have to depend on these billionaires to step up. But the realities are some of the environmental challenges that we face in California are so daunting that you do need buy-in from many of these big wallets that find themselves in a position to help out.
Well, you do. And look, it goes to the NFL, apparently. I think I read this yesterday, $5 million contribution to the wildfire situation. One of them's going to play tonight in Arizona, as you know, because of the fires. So I think you're going to see, and already are seeing, Mark, a lot of corporations and a lot of wealthier, as you point out, individuals get in this game. I think that's inevitable. Part of it is they have their own stakes there. I mean, some of these people have their own residences there, or second residences, or third or fourth. Some of them have employees there. I mean, CBS is part of Paramount, as you know. Paramount's operation in LA, very sensitive to this. People are working from home. I know there's going to be ongoing attempts to raise funds to support the region. It's going to be a long rebuild. That's the other thing I wanted to sort of say right up front, Mark. I know you know this, but I'll tell you what, there's people right now, Paradise Fires 5-6 years ago, people just now rebuilding. So this is part of the challenge. Okay, let me flip the coin. Here's an advantage, if you can call it that, but it truly is one in the modern world, an advantage that is going to be had by the Southern California, LA region, and that's simply being the heart and soul of media, right? I mean, getting the message out. People forget that Western North Carolina was absolutely ravaged by Hurricane Helene, but it is not the center of the media universe like LA is, right? So I would sincerely expect that you're going to see a much quicker response and a much more vibrant response than you see to many disasters, simply because the cameras, the celebrities, the organizations, the companies themselves have roots in that region.
Well, I think you contextualize it so well, which is one of the reasons I love talking to you. I mean, but I'll get to the comparison in a second because I do want to talk about the context. It's interesting that a lot of these areas, like the Pacific Palisades, for example, and Malibu, it's total devastation. I mean, it is as though a bomb has gone off. I mean, people are talking about Hiroshima, et cetera. Now, the beauty here is that there wasn't the loss of life, obviously, that there was in a Hiroshima, et cetera. So that comparison, I think, breaks down pretty quickly. But the complete elimination of a community is something that is an extraordinary thing to see. So we're talking about, as you suggested, I mean, if 6 years in the instance that you just talked about, I mean, it will maybe generations before we actually see these communities return to what they were. And they're going to have to return in a different way. And this is, I think, kind of you were rubbing up against this, which is we're going to have to find building materials that are fire resistant. I mean, the wood and the construction materials that are used now were just gone in seconds against the kind of natural environment that continues to rule and will rule into the future. So you cannot rebuild in the same way. And now then I get to what you were talking about when you were contextualizing, because these hurricanes that have affected the East Coast particularly and have been so enormously devastating, they tend to be followed by just building back. And I think there aren't, for example, in Florida, they're trying to increase seawalls and this sort of thing. But there aren't necessarily the true pivots in those regions that California is going to have to do. I mean, we need a real reckoning here. This is a situation in which you can't. I'm seeing all of these building restrictions. I'll stop talking in a second, but it's such a treat to share this with you, because I see all of these articles written about how building restrictions, which are so really tough along the Coastal Commission and also in the Palisades and throughout California, Altadena included, are going to be waived so that people can rebuild. So, well, in a way that's good because it allows rebuilding, but in a way that's bad, because what you need is new sort of come to Jesus sort of construction materials there, where we can find resistant materials used in the building of homes and businesses. Aren't I right?
Yeah, Mark, there's going to be, use the word reckoning. That's the painful word to even say right now, because there already are local government officials who said, look, in the last 5-10 years especially, we haven't approved developments that would have been approved 20 or 30 years ago because of the reasons you're talking about. The same thing certainly with building materials. I mean, you talk about the cedar shake roofs. A lot of people don't know what we're talking about, but it's just split cedar. I mean, the shingles, okay, is what is so dangerous in these fire-prone areas. And, of course, wood frame structures. That's why now you see in California, as you know, Mark, almost exclusively stucco homes on the outside, cement or, non-flammable material. They call them shingles, but really they're tile roofs. And that's the kind of build back that the governor has even been talking about a weekend. It's probably going to be required. Now, one of the most painful parts of this, Mark, is going to be, this area so very well, but along the PCH, the Pacific Coast Highway, those homes that were literally perched on the other side of the highway, right over on the bluffs above the ocean. Are those going to be allowed to be built back? Boy, it's hard to envision some of that happening, even if you waive a lot of environmental regulations. So there are some tough choices that are going to have to be made. And this is going to be very difficult, because what do you do if you deny people that? People, of course, say, well, wait a minute, that had value, right? That property, that home had value. Are you going to compensate all those people if you don't allow them to build back on that specific spot? The same with businesses. So there are going to be some tough choices that have to be made. These are talked about a lot, but now they're going to have to be implemented, Mark, about what you do with everything from where you allow people to build, to what you allow them to build with, to what then you require of them in terms of brush clearing and, as the fire guys and gals call it, defensible space. These are all things that are going to come into play in the next 12 to 24 months that are going to, in some ways, as you say, maybe over the long term, be building back better, but there's going to be some painful choices and decisions, and ones that I might add are not going to be inexpensive.
You talk about a supercharged political issue. You're telling people who could afford to buy coastline property in Malibu that they may not be allowed to rebuild their residence there. That is a conversation that has going to, it'll have to have some money attached to it, right? Because you'll have to compensate these homeowners in some way. I don't know where that money is going to come from, and that we're going to get to that in a second. And number two, as you say, these people had something of immense value there from the standpoint of a love of that place. But it is also true that the Coastal Commission is notorious. I mean, there's a Carolla video going around. Adam Carolla did a video about, I wanted to read, now I put a swimming pool in my Malibu place, and it's a double-hulled pool. They want two, I got to build it with two hulls, because if it leaks, it gets into the water supply. They're so worried about the water supply, it costs $500,000 to build this pool. And Adam is right about the Coastal Commission. He's right about how tough they are, which is why I think you're right when you say they may actually crack back on people's ability to build there, but to build their residences back. But I would also say that one of the virtues of some of these protections and regulations is, that swimming pool water or whatever it may be doesn't leach into the drinking supply. I mean, if it leaches in the drinking supply, you'd hear Carolla going, this is the Great Coastal Commission. They couldn't do anything to prevent the water from leaking into the drinking supply. So you see the clash of so many different things, from regulations to a desire to renew, and now to the insurance. There is an emerging issue that really emerged a few years ago. Courtney and I have been talking about it for years, because we're on the FAIR plan, which, as you know, is troubled, and many people are on the FAIR plan who are in a lot of these regions that have been burned out. Speak to the realities of the FAIR plan, the monies they have, and the future of real estate and insurance in California.
Yeah, well, as you know, Mark, for those other parts around the country understand some of this. But to understand California's dilemma, you have to understand that there are major insurers who have just stopped writing policies in certain regions of the state, or in some cases in the state in total. There are other insurers who have said, okay, well, listen, if we don't get adjustments that allow us to, actuarially sort of build in the risk structure in different vulnerable parts of California, we can't write them. I mean, and then you have, so let's just start with the private market to begin with, and then we'll jump into the FAIR plan. In terms of private insurers, they did get some changes and some accommodations as recently as just a few months ago that enable them to, say, okay, we'll write policies, but they're going to be more expensive in riskier areas. Now, to some people's ears, that makes sense, right? To other people, they're saying, well, listen, if you're an older couple and you're in those areas, you could be literally priced out of your home by insurance, right? What do you do about that? That's still a question that lingers out there. And then the FAIR plan, the one that is you're on, and if people don't know, the reason why people like Mark may be on the FAIR plan is because they couldn't literally access private market insurance. So they have to be in this, governmental or quasi-governmental entity that offers insurance, but it is at higher prices and at lower value in terms of being able, what it will cover. But that entity, there's a lot of discussion right now, as you pointed out, Mark, about the survival of the FAIR plan. What is it going to take? There are some redundancies built into it. We won't get too wonkish about that today. Sort of reinsurance and other things that will help the plan to survive. But there's a backstop, an ultimate backstop that a lot of people are worried about, that insurers have the capacity, that they're required to pay into the FAIR plan if it needs extra monies. And that will mean that all insurers in California have to pay part of that backstop. So this is something that over the next few months is going to be talked about a lot. And sorting out the California insurance market is going to be, in the aftermath of this particular conflagration, is going to be a big job.
This is also pointed to, it's interesting, it's not just California. Danny says that's what's happening in Florida now. People are leaving because of the home insurance problems. It's not just, I mentioned Florida in relation to the hurricanes, and the insurance companies are going, hey guys, you're building back in the same areas that are being devastated every few years, and we're sick of insuring it, and there's not enough money here for us to continue. That is the money from insurers. I mean, those who want insurance are going to be paying an excruciating bill. I mean, as you suggested, it to the point that you just can't afford it anymore. And so you either have to self-insure, which means that, if my home burns, I'm just going to build it back on my own because I've got the money, or I'm going to have to leave. And the last thing I would say, and tell me if this is right, the FAIR plan exists really to support real estate and the real estate market in California. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, if you want to finance a home, which is the way most of us buy homes, you need to insure that mortgage somehow. And so that insurance must be there. Otherwise, the bank won't loan you the money. And so
Yes.
that's why the FAIR Plan's there, to say, hey, don't worry, the state's got them covered, even though we can't get State Farm or Allstate or Farmers, et cetera.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, every mortgage grantor is going to require insurance, right? I mean, that's just the way it works. You have to have proof of insurance to get a mortgage. And so, yes, the FAIR Plan both has preserved the real estate market, but also, of course, helps the insurance companies from going bankrupt in their view, and helps the average person retain insurance, because it's not just when you're buying a new home, as you know, Mark. Some people's plans have been canceled. A number of people's plans have been canceled who actually have been in their homes sometimes for a long time. So that's a conundrum. Here's one thing. I don't know how much time we have left, but I want to get this in. Here's one thing you have not heard Gary Dietrich say today, and you know me very well, Mark. I have not jumped into the middle of the fray, the back and forth with political opponents trying to make hay of this in each other's backyard. I'm just not going to engage in that, okay? And the reason I'm not, and I try to talk as objectively as we can about the problems and, people having to come together to solve them, because there is, as you know, Mark, no ultimate value in doing so, right? There's not going to be any value to the people of California just trying to lay blame at somebody's doorstep. Now, again, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. Is there going to be accountability? Yes. Is some of that appropriate? Absolutely, yes. At the local, state, and federal level, right? And sometimes even in the private sector level. What about the insurance company? What about the FAIR Plan? So that's all appropriate, but I am just not going to get sucked down the rabbit hole of screaming and yelling and people online, all the memes and all the rest of it that goes, because there's no value in that. There really, truly is no helpful value in that for the people of California and beyond.
Do you think the federal government will ultimately allow California to build back? And here's where the shoe pinches. It pinches in two places. It pinches, at minimum, money. So I'm interested in your thought on that. But the second place is a primary directive of an incoming administration that says we want mass roundups of illegals, and people who are not here legally will be deported. Now, when you're talking about the kind of build that is associated with these communities that are devastated, it will absolutely involve people who are here who don't have all the documentation of a legal resident. I'm wondering if that won't be a place in which Donald Trump directs some of these people who will round up illegals. Is that possible? Take that part first and then get to the federal money.
Yeah, well, in terms of the immigration issue, some of this is getting, there's so many things happening at once right now in politics. Sure. It is difficult for people to filter it all out. But in the background of what's happening in, of course, places like SoCal right now, getting a lot of attention, rightfully so, is an administration that is both getting ready to populate itself, as you know, with a lot of nominees and others starting tomorrow. The hearings begin in Washington for cabinet secretaries, but also putting policies in place. So you're starting to hear just in the last few days, what are some of the specifics about the immigration policies that Trump talked about on the campaign trail? And what you're hearing, Mark, and this will be fleshed out even in greater detail in the next few weeks and in the next couple of months, but is that they really are going to start with people who have criminal records that got into the country, that the federal government knows they have either pre-existing criminal records or have committed some kind of fairly significant crime but remain in the country. That's sort of group A. That's where they're going to be starting. The second group that they said they're going to be targeting is people who came in recently and don't have well-established, they don't have a job and a residence or whatever yet. They are sort of, to quote a term, easily deportable because they really don't have any roots or connections here at this juncture. They may not even have family here. So I think you're going to see a tiered approach to this immigration thing. It is not going to be send out every bus in the country to round up 12 million people. For one thing, there's not even federal budget or federal personnel to do that. So I think that's important to point out. And I'm guessing, Mark, that you're going to see a much lower priority on the kind of people you're referencing. Say they're working for a construction company, right? Or they have some other gainful employment. I don't think those people are going to be job A by any stretch of the imagination. And then I think go ahead.
To the money. Yeah, I'll just follow up, and then I'll ask you about the money. I mean, that's a lot just on what you were saying. A lot of those people and concerns to which you've referred, talking about construction, agriculture, et cetera, these are huge companies and businesses that have been big donors to the Trump campaign. And so I think they have a place at that table when the conversation comes as to who's deported. Now to the federal money. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, in terms of federal dollars, yet to be seen. I mean, the FEMA budget's been under the microscope, as you know, a lot, especially in the last 12 months or so, for a whole variety of reasons we don't have time to go into today. But, how the money was spent. Was it targeted to certain areas, politically targeted, right? Or withheld in certain areas? How much of it was spent for non-disaster relief monies? For example, to folks who were undocumented or to housing concerns or other things. So I have no doubt that there's going to be a big discussion immediately in Washington and the Congress about how much is needed to address LA, how does it get there in an objective, nonpartisan way, et cetera. So that's certainly going to be a point of conversation. And almost certainly there's going to be special requests, as there were after Hurricane Helene. There's going to be special requests for additional dollars beyond that currently budgeted, because people are talking about being a $250 billion plus rebuild.
I'm smiling because it's so rich to hear the senator from Wyoming say, well, we're going to we're thinking about giving California the money, but we just want to make sure that all it's used properly. There are definitely going to be some strings attached, is what he said. And it strikes me as both absurd and typical Washington that we can think back not that far to the Trump administration during which Mitch McConnell's wife was the transportation secretary, and she dumped $1 jillion on the state of Kentucky and these no-bid deals that were going to the state of Kentucky. So when Washington wants to have strings attached, it can have strings attached. And when Washington doesn't care about strings attached and they just want to take care of people, it can happen that way too. Gary, and this is kind of a supersized version. You're so beautiful to stay with us for just one more second, because I do want to ask you about the confirmation process. So it does begin. There's been something of a mini scandal with the FBI, and there are Democrats in the Senate that are saying they're missing FBI information on Pete Hegseth. And perhaps other nominees as well, but Hegseth is sort of head of that parade. Can you speak to the background check process and to what extent these gaps and these claims of sort of scandalous gaps might affect confirmation?
Yeah, well, there's a lot to say about this, but I'm going to try to condense it into about 90 seconds, okay? So let's use an example, Hegseth, just as an example, okay? Up for Secretary of Defense, the FBI personally briefed the now Republican chair of the committee that will review his nomination and the ranking Democratic member last week. Okay, apparently that happened on Friday. A 1-hour briefing by the FBI. So information is getting out. The question is how much and how fast, Mark. And this is not new to the Trump confirmation process, by the way. FBI investigations, depending on who you are, they can be extensive and take quite a long period of time. Now, do you want to take a year to investigate somebody before you have a secretary of fill in the blank? Most people would say, no, that's not reasonable. But do you need more than a week or a couple weeks? Well, maybe you do, at least in some cases. Here's, to me, the interesting political conundrum of this is that to your previous point, Washington can be Washington, right? Just weeks ago, months ago, we had Republicans screaming about the FBI, saying it wasn't objective, it wasn't fair. Now we have a certain number of Democratic senators saying, well, the FBI, of course, under Joe Biden, now we're saying it isn't being fair in producing reports for these Republican nominees. So, it sort of depends on the moment in history and even the day of the week, where you think the FBI is. Is it objective? Is it not? Eventually, some hard questions are going to be asked at these confirmation hearings, and my guess is if some of them are very substantive, you're going to have chairs and vice chairs of these committees saying, well, we got to put the brakes on this until we get more information on ABC.
Well, it's so interesting. The thing that's focused on in the background check with Hegseth, anyway, because we're talking about him, is associated with the various sexual improprieties, about his alcoholism, or what the accusations of alcoholism. Certainly, a lot of drinking going on, and what's lost in all that is basic questions of competence. I mean, he was thrown out of this nonprofit. He's really had an inability to run anything, and now he's going to be in charge of the Pentagon. It seems like a big reach, but there is a death grip that Donald Trump has on this nomination. He likes his Pete Hegseth, and the man does look good. I'll give you that. I mean, if I had his look, God knows, I'd be unstoppable. But apart from that, I mean, I don't see what he's got. Do you? This is kind of prediction territory, and now we'll let you go in 60 seconds, I promise. But do you see one of these more controversial nominees, Hegseth, Patel, Gabbard? Do you see one of them as more likely not to make it?
Yeah, I wouldn't lay odds on who's more likely than not likely.
Okay.
I think and the reason is because, Mark, we don't have all the information, okay? I don't have all the information. I mean, these FBI investigations, these aren't released publicly, right? These go to the members. So, always, it's not uncommon in confirmation hearings for some things somewhat surprising to come out. So could that happen? Yes. Could it sink one of these nominations? Yes. I mean, take the other side of the coin. We have some that we know are pretty much going to sail through. Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. That's a done deal. These people know him. He's been vetted for years. He's probably going to sail through. So I would say the majority of the nominations are not going to be hugely controversial. Are one or more of the people you mentioned going to be under a microscope and potentially be sunk? Yeah, they could be. Some of this is going to, just be based on sheer data, sheer information. Some of it's going to be political. Is one of these people going to end up being a sacrificial lamb that Democrats feel like we got to take somebody down? That's not uncommon, as you know, and that could well happen.
Yeah, that's so well said. And as we've said before here, presidents generally get most of the cabinet they want, so you can maybe pick off a couple, but you ain't going to be vetoing it all. So especially when you're not in control of things. Listen, you've been great today. Of course, these are extraordinary times, and this is an extraordinarily juicy segment. Thank you. Appreciate you, my friend, and let's hope for better things the rest of this year.
Absolutely.
Gary Dietrich,
Thanks,
everybody.
Mark.
Gary Dietrich segment is sponsored, of course, by Bill Campbell, and thank you, Bill, for giving us a supersized Gary Dietrich segment today. Bill Campbell can be found at Remax Gold, and if you're relocating into or from Northern California, you need a great industry professional, highly respected. Bill Campbell is that guy. He's at Remax Gold. You can call or text him. Bill's at 530-448-7474. 530-448-7474. Bill Campbell at Remax Gold.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, wow. We've been doing a lot today. A lot going on.
Oh, busy little show.
Yeah, wow. We've had a lot coming and going. A lot of Kim and Tony that you're not seeing, but they're making stuff happen behind the scenes. And I appreciate that from both of you, because there's a lot in the air. As I say, Tony comes back, and the first thing we do is dump a deadly fire on him. Tony. Yeah. And then
I can pick my vacations. This last time I went on vacation was when all the floods happened in April.
Oh, wow. Cool. I wish I'd known.
Well done,
How are
Tony.
you?
Nice.
Smash the like button. I haven't asked you to do that, but I would really appreciate it.
Rod.
Yeah, smash it with your iron rod. Smash it like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, we appreciate it. It helps us in the YouTube universe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it is very much appreciated. Yes, smash it with your iron. Also, subscribe and share the show. It helps build our audience, and that's a good thing. And you can help keep us alive. You can go to themarkthompsonshow.com, click the Patreon or PayPal link to join our community, contribute. There have been some great new people joining our community of supporters. I'm so grateful. And even some who are already part of our Patreon or PayPal community who have upped their support. And I'm just so touched and appreciative. And so I want to thank you as well. And in fact, at the end of every show, we scroll everyone's name. And one of the things we do, and we just sort of decided to do this when we began, because first of all, you're the reason that we're on the air, all of you who contribute to the show. And we appreciate everybody, because not everybody can contribute. And please don't misunderstand me. I appreciate all the ways that people participate and, you know, hit the like button or whatever these things are. This all matters, I guess, you know, and subscribing. But those who have the means to support us and help us stay on the air, we're so grateful to you. So we decided early on we're going to scroll these names. And because people do contribute more, some of them really deserve, you know, big sort of daily shout outs. We put the names of people who've contributed more slightly bigger than some of the others. We, again, appreciative to everybody. That's why everybody's name is there. So Tony calls me and he says, you know, we got this really big contribution. And it's just like, it's so big that we need to do something. And
what?
How would you like to handle it? So I said, and you'll see this at the end of the show if you're watching, I said, you need to give her the screen by herself as you scroll it. You just give her the whole screen. And that's what you did, right, man?
It's the one that's been airing since the first. So,
yeah, it's been airing since the first.
Okay.
You might have missed it. If you guys
need me to change it, I will, but I hope I
No,
did it
I'm
well
saying
enough.
it's great. It's absolutely great. And she deserves it. She deserves
it was one of
it.
those moments of, hey, you need to check this because I think I'm reading this wrong.
Yeah,
Is this everything cool?
It was PayPal, and
Thanks, Tony.
she really stepped up.
Yeah,
and you'll see her name.
Wow,
And,
what a lovely thing to do.
Yeah, really, really cool. So we have her on the screen. Right. Anyway, that's sort of the way that we recognize how grateful we are to all of you. Now, I really would like to get some Kim news in. It's been a minute, you know.
Okay, I can do that.
So we'll do that. And I also want to give you one bit of show news, which is that for the rest of this week, you're going to get an upgrade in host. Michael Shore is going to join.
Are you going on another cruise? What are you doing?
He will be hosting in my stead. Now, I'm going to be doing KFI Radio in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really tough, I have to say, to step away from my own show at a time of such need.
Yeah.
But Michael is so great, and the two of you together will be terrific, with Tony, of course, supporting. But I just feel as though he's so smart, so with it in Southern California, which I think is important maybe to have some perspective on what's going on. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what you two do. I'm also glad that I can provide a service to Southern Californians by being on the radio. And that's what I will do for 4 hours a day. It's just me. So it's kind of wild. It'll be KFI Radio. So, but your first stop is here every day. Californians were 11-1. East Coasters were 2-4. So I'm counting on you guys to continue to support the show. And more than anything, I think you're going to be getting great shows. Michael is just terrific. He's so smart. He's funny. He's everything, you know. And Kim is so on top of all of the information. It will be breaking. It's going to be an extremely eventful week. And Kim is so terrific at staying on top of these things and keeping us pointed toward magnetic north, you know. So it's a great thing. All right. Kim's news, and we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. So good. In Southern California, I know we've talked a lot about fires today, but officials are expecting the return of these dangerously high winds as crews battle the fires in the area. Los Angeles County Fire Chief Anthony Maroney saying a super scooper firefighting plane damaged by a drone will be returning to the air tomorrow pending FAA approval. The death toll in the fires so far, 24 people, with California Governor Gavin Newsom saying there are likely to be a lot more.
If I can just say one thing, it is disgusting in all of this cauldron of stuff that's filled with things that disgust me. that you can fly a drone into an area that you know is being devastated by flames. Our only chance against these flames is associated with the air attack. This is an immense aircraft that is not just a chopper, but there it is. It's a super scooper. It picks up that water off the ocean, or I think it's generally off the ocean, not off the reservoirs, but maybe off the reservoirs too.
And it could have been in use as we really needed it the last several days.
Right. And so there it is, the damage. We're showing it to you now on the left wing. And it's left as you're the pilot. It's the left side.
But they got the drone parts.
It's not the left wing, it's the right wing. What?
But they got the drone parts, see? And they're going to find out whose it was.
I hope so.
They're going to find it. And they're going to
Yeah. So can a drone be tracked somehow? Tony says yes, they can.
Yeah, no, because it has IDs in it because it's a DJI. So and a guy was, I mean, getting off track fast. A guy has been on, I think, Twitter or Instagram. Any serial number codes, he's been showing up and posting all the serial number codes that have been flying drones. So
that's great. That's really great.
Thanks, Tony.
That's really great.
I hope they do.
Good knowledge. Yeah, it's just well, it's illegal, of course, but I mean, there should be a real price to pay. Go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
As we mentioned earlier, police say a man wearing a firefighter's jacket is being held on suspicion of burglarizing a home in Malibu. Sunday, Los Angeles Police Chief Jim McDonald said the man was arrested on suspicion of impersonating a firefighter. LA County Sheriff Robert Luna says about 30 people have been arrested in and near wildfire evacuation zones as looting concerns persists. There should be a special place in hell for them. Governor Gavin Newsom signing an order suspending some environmental requirements to speed up wildfire recovery efforts in Los Angeles County. The executive order signed Sunday suspends permitting and review requirements under two environmental protection acts. They are the California Environmental Quality Act and the Coastal California Act. This will apply to residents planning to rebuild their homes and their businesses destroyed by the Palisades or Eaton fires. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says a breakthrough in ceasefire talks is on the horizon. Blinken says it's now Hamas's move to get it done. Despite months of delays, he said sealing an agreement is now closer than it has ever been before. The Secretary of State cautioned they have had moments before where the ball gets pulled away at the very last minute and that a Mohammed Sinwar could pull his support at any moment. A Florida judge is clearing the way for the release of a report on President-elect Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Judge Eileen Cannon denied a request that would have extended an injunction blocking the Justice Department from the partial release of the former special counsel Jack Smith report. This means the DOJ can now release the volume of the report as soon as midnight. So here we go with that. As Mark mentioned earlier, Senate confirmation hearings begin this week for some of President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. Tuesday, Pete Hegseth will be in the hot seat as senators question the former Fox News host about a variety of allegations against him as he is considered for defense secretary. Hearings for a long list of nominees will continue through the week. Federal health officials warn childhood vaccination rates are falling. CDC data showing less than 93% of kindergartners last year got vaccinated for measles. That is down from the 95% rate seen before the COVID-19 pandemic.
So what is it? It's less than what?
Less than 93% of kindergartners?
Yeah.
Wow. Vaccination rates for chickenpox, polio, and whooping cough also fell at a similar rate. About 92% inoculation is needed for herd immunity, where unvaccinated children aren't able to easily spread measles.
So you're bumping up right up against the herd immunity. So you're saying we're close to now 10% of kids who show up to school not being inoculated is what you're saying.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Poor sanitation at a Boar's Head factory in Virginia contributed to deadly listeria outbreaks last year. A new report from the U.S. Department of Agriculture says inspectors found meat and fat residue from the previous day's production on the equipment, including packaging equipment. The listeria outbreak resulted in the deaths of 10 people and sickened and left dozens more in at least 19 different states.
I mean, again, guys, I know regulations. Oh my God, burdensome regulations. This is what you need. You need regulations on your food. These are protections. Who do you want at the FDA? And who do you want at the USDA? Who do you want at these agencies that control what you put in your body? You want people who are responding to a need and are honoring regulations, protections, basic consumer protections. This is what the right wants to roll them all back. They want to close down these government agencies. Let these corporations and businesses self-police. This is what self-policing gets you. It gets you total, slovenly, gross, and lethal dropping of the ball here. The people died. Lots of people.
Yeah.
Because of this boar's head is supposed to be the high end. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, not only do the protections have to be in place, they have to be, inspectors have to honor them. I mean, clearly somebody dropped the ball before because the protections were in place. The regulations were there. And somehow Boar's Head was allowed to slide. Unreal.
Pretty yucky stuff. The events leading up to President-elect Trump's inauguration, January 20th, begin this weekend. Saturday, Trump National Golf Club in Virginia will host a president's reception and fireworks display. That will be followed on Sunday by a wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery's Tomb of the Unknown Soldier before Trump hosts a victory rally at Capital One Arena.
Wow. Quite a party, Kim. Are you going to be, that's a party.
Yeah. Wow.
You're not going to be at any of the...
No.
Don your MAGA outfit and dance the night away?
I'll be home doing my very best to look away.
Okay.
The Grammy Awards will not be postponed due to the
Don't
Southern
talk to me that way.
The Grammy Awards will not be postponed due to the Southern California wildfires. The Recording Academy announcing today the decision was made in close coordination with local authorities. Music's biggest night set to take place on February 2nd at the Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles. The show will now be used to raise additional funds to support relief efforts and honor first responders. So that's nice. Both the 2021 and 22 ceremonies faced postponements due to the pandemic, but there will not be a postponement here. Hopefully by February, crews will get more of a containment handle on all of this. So
let me tell you one thing, just because you mentioned the pandemic. I'm sorry. This feels, when you're in the middle of it, a lot worse than the pandemic. It really does. When you've got to flee your home for your life, so again, I understand the pandemic was a pandemic. It's worldwide. It turned the country and the world on its side. So please don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying when you're in the middle of it, this thing that we're dealing with, it feels like, wow, the pandemic was a picnic compared to this. I mean, what happened to the pandemic? I got fat on Doritos and bottles of wine, I mean, I'm just talking about just my own experience. Again, I'm not speaking to the worldwide impact. Please don't misunderstand me. But I am telling you, just as like a voice from the center of all of this, this is way scarier, like another universe of scary and destruction from the pandemic.
Well, it makes sense because in the pandemic, it was what was outside of your home was frightening. But in this instance, you have to leave your home and you are unsure of whether it's going to be there when you get back. So you have no place to be. Your stability is wiped away. And that I would think that would be scarier. Absolutely.
I also just would say, and then we can move on, I don't know if I'd call it anxiety. It's fear. It's fear. When you're really scared like this and you've got your animals and your belongings and, your picture of mom and dad or whatever you've got and your kids, and you're all huddled in this car packed with this stuff and you're trying to find a place to go that can accommodate you, and you're calling friends that you haven't spoken with in years. I mean, and your heart is beating through your chest for days, not for an hour, for 2 hours, for 12 hours, for days. We haven't slept. I'm telling you, it is when you're in the middle of it. Again, guys, please don't jump on me because I know COVID was horrible. But, and it certainly is not a contest, no. It's not a contest, Mark. No, I'm trying to describe a human emotion, Eve.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. I know that people are going to bust me somehow for saying it, but I just am saying COVID just feels like it was a so much easier climb than this one that we're in the middle of. But go ahead.
Yeah. Let's lighten it up, Francis, because Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, stole the top spot at the weekend box office.
Den of Thieves 2, everybody. Come on.
The heist sequel starring Gerard Butler grossed an estimated $15.5 million in its debut weekend.
Oh, my God.
What?
That's terrific.
I know.
Yeah,
It's sad
that's
to
really
say that
good.
That's not fake. That's real.
Okay, you're right. Thank you, Dr. Fauci. Back for the COVID conversation. Yeah.
Dethroned Mufasa, the Lion King, which fell to second with an estimated 13.5 mil. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 stayed in the race with an $11 million gross to take third.
It was great. I loved it.
Okay.
I'm
yeah.
really trying to get out of seeing Sonic Hedgehog 3.
Well,
because
Den of Thieves 2. Oh, there it is. Sonic Hedgehog 3. Thank you.
I heard it's like flashing lights and loud noises, and I just don't have it in me.
It's
Although I
been
It
around.
has Keanu Reeves in it.
Yeah.
Oh, does it? There's
Oh,
that.
wow.
He's Shadow.
Have you seen it?
No, not yet. I haven't had time.
Okay.
Tony hasn't seen it? Yeah.
No, which is a surprise to me.
Snyder, the culture blaster, says that the new Gerard Butler film, the one
Pantera,
that won
Den of Thieves,
he says it's confusing. There are not a lot of subtitles, and they're speaking, I guess, French or something, or there's some kind of other. This is my recollection of what he said, but he said that there's some amazing chase. There's a chase sequence, he said, that's really great, and amazing also scenes of the heist. So he said it's really good from that standpoint, but he said the rest of the movie he wasn't crazy for.
Oh, wow, good to
Anyway,
know.
yeah.
I wasn't going to run right out.
I wasn't going to go anyway, but thank
okay.
you. Yeah, good to know. Yeah.
This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Oh, I have to tell you, I know it's the coffee's in the title, but the tea takes top award from me. So good. So check it out. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Mark loves the coffee.
I do.
love the
I've got
tea,
a
and
cup right here. It's all I can count on. In fact, we're going to pre-evacuate, and I'm not sure that I'll be able to have coffee at the new place. It's concerning me.
Take your Coachella with you.
We may take the coffee maker with us, yeah.
Pack it in the to-go bag. Off you go.
The first thing. Did you get the cats? No, but I got the coffee machine.
I got the coffee. I got the Coachella. We're good to go.
Yeah.
It
my
is
gosh.
fresh, so fresh, all fresh beans and organic and from women-owned farms. It is CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And if you do find something that you want, make sure when you get to the checkout page, the little code box, you type in Mark T, MARKT, all together, and that'll get you 10% off.
That's right. And the Ocotillo Espresso is being enjoyed by Ms. Organic right now.
Nice.
Wow. I like real time.
What?
Yes. Real time reporting.
There you go.
It is one of my favorites, too. Where is the Coachella Valley? Just give me the truth is asking. The California desert.
Palm
It
Springs
rises
area,
up.
right? Yeah.
It rises up like a monument in the desert, a monument to everything delicious and magnificent. Coachella Valley coffee rises up in the Coachella Valley. Oh, it's a vision of magnificence when you drive into the Coachella Valley. But if you want a taste of that magnificence, again, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, Mark T at checkout for 10% off.
If I was going to the Coachella Valley, that would be my first stop.
Ah.
Right there, Coachella Valley Coffee, I'm in.
You would be welcomed by Cliff, the Roastmaster General.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be good
Very
stuff.
cool.
I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson? Who's Mark Thompson? Who's Mark Thompson?
All right.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Come on.
Who's Mark Thompson?
I get it.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Wow.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Okay. Oh, God, that's a little excessive on the Who's Mark Thompson, please. This is one of the organizations, the one that Billy, who joined us at the beginning of the show, Billy McNamara, who actually goes in and rescues alongside some other very courageous responders. This is the organization. You can reach them. Palms and Paws Veterinary Center is also there alongside. This is kind of a disaster response handout that they posted on Instagram, I think. But it's Animal Advocacy Net. But anyway, the number is what I really want you to take note of. 800-290-8129. 800-290-8129. Cats, dogs, birds, and critters of all sorts. Billy and the crew there, so terrific. 800-290-8129. So that's a...
The Mark Thompson Show.
So the first hour we did really all you could, I think, gulp down in an hour on the fires and possible genesis of the fires. Again, it's an emerging narrative. Tough to say exactly what they were caused by. I think the Eaton fire, the Altadena fire, appears to have a connection to the electric line. The Palisades fire / Malibu fire, that appears to have some connection to a man-made source, not the electric company. But again, all this stuff is still up in the air. But I just felt that there was some evidence. We saw some visual evidence again today. We heard some anecdotal evidence, and we heard kind of what politicians were talking about. We did that a lot in the first hour. You know, we are looking at this Watch Duty app, and Kim, we found it invaluable. And it's a nonprofit. This guy, John Mills, launched this nonprofit after experiencing...
Out of my county here in Sonoma County.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a Bay Area fire that motivated him to start this Watch Duty. And you need fast, dependable information. This thing's amazing. I paid for the upgrades. They are a nonprofit, as I say.
And they have staff. They have people there updating all the information. So it's good, reliable info.
Yeah. So, as Kim says, live updates from their reporters, notable shifts in any of the fire movement, firefighting measures, local closures, and you can see all of it there in the Watch Duty app. So if you're in Southern California or in Northern California, as Kim says, it came out of Sonoma. You should jump on this Watch Duty app, and I support them. You know, I pay for it. But there it is. Thank you, Tony. That's the whole state, and then you can, you know, zoom in on your area. And in the upgrade versions, you can add all of these overlays, watches, warnings, humidities, dew points, wind direction, wind velocities. It's amazing. I'm really so impressed with these guys. We should try to get him on the air.
Yeah, we should.
Maybe when the dust settles.
Yeah. No, it's a really good app.
Yeah. CeeCee Ryder says, I just downloaded the Watch Duty app an hour ago. Yeah, it's a good grab.
I told my sister about it, and she said, I've been using that app for days. She's watching the fires approach UCLA because we have, her daughter is at UCLA. The daughter, by the way, got on an airplane a few days ago along with her two roommates, one from Washington, D.C. and one from Hawaii. So now we've got 3 UCLA students who are remote learning for the week because UCLA extended that. And they're here in Petaluma. UCLA North is what we have going on.
Wow, that's terrific.
Yeah.
That really is. I mean, it's terrific that they're there with you.
Yeah.
More terrific if they could stay in school and this whole thing wasn't happening. By the way, we talked about looting and we talked about burglaries that have followed this. Guess where they picked up 2 burglars in Brentwood, California, not the Brentwood in Northern California, but in Southern California, where so many have been evacuated. They picked them up at Kamala Harris's house. That's right.
What?
Yeah. Police arrest 2 suspected burglars at Kamala Harris's Brentwood home during the fires. They confirm that 2 individuals, police confirm, they were arrested at the vice president's Brentwood home at 4:40 in the morning over the weekend. Ultimately, they could not prove that they were involved in the burglary, but they detained them for violating curfew. If there's a curfew imposed on evacuation zone, 6 to 6 is the curfew. That this, as we said, is a real issue with people going into these areas to loot and steal.
Because if you don't have enough stress about leaving your home, there's that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but worth noting that no one's out of the line of fire. Maud Day, wow, check you out, Maud Day, man. She's sending us a $100 super chat. She said, I missed your subscriber count. Here's to that. And superb guests. Thank you and the team, Mark. Wow, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I am going to cry, man. I'm going to cry all the time. I'm telling you, I'm spending more time crying than not. I'm on the verge of tears a lot. But Maud takes me over the edge with a $100 contribution. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. Really, really cool. Maud, we love you.
Big shout out.
You are an OG of this show. You've been here since the beginning, and you've been a real active supporter and financial supporter as well, and so appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maud. That is super cool. Thank you, everybody. I saw a brilliant way a man saved his house. He installed sprinklers pointing down and out from the eaves of his roof, says Wes, and actual lawn sprinklers on the roof. He turned it on, packed up, and evacuated. That's great. I mean, I really feel handicapped that I can't do anything like that. I don't know how you people who, and there are many of you, because you've written to me and you show up in our chat, who are like super handy with stuff, and you could stitch that together. I can barely turn the hose on. I'm really, I'm a city kid. I grew up in the city. So I can help you with a lot of stuff that you may need to figure in the city, that you might, but if you need to figure out how to construct something on the fly, Tony is your guy who can do that. Tony, we would, we have people here at the show who can do it, and Tony's our guy.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. There's the guy who...
Here's a guy just doing a pump in his pool, And,
yeah.
This is the one I was telling you about, Tony, where the guy has an agricultural sprayer that he bought and puts a hose in his pool, attaches it all, and it is a huge range, this thing. And they have to leave their home. And when they get back, his house is standing, and then half of his neighbor's house that was covered by the pump and the sprayer is standing as well. And everything around it was gone.
That's extraordinary. I have to say, I have two things to say. First of all, you have to, again, it still requires a little bit of engineering experience. I mean, just basic. I mean, I'm saying common sense engineering experience, not like formal schooling. And the other thing I would say is, remember, the true ferocity of these Santa Ana winds is so immense. 50, 60, 70 mile an hour winds. I'm sorry, the wind will blow that water back away. I mean, it's not a fair fight, Yep. So you need just the right situation for that to work. I would say in the majority of situations, I'm sure that will be helpful, but I'm just saying in this one, sure, it really is somewhat extraordinary. I do want to take a couple of quick comments, if I can, on the way out. Tom says they would need 26,000 fire trucks to fight every structure fire by the standard procedure. Yeah, I think I saw that on 60 Minutes as well last night. Does anybody find fault when a tornado levels a Texas town? No. People need to quit. No one did anything wrong in L.A. County, says Rhonda. Yeah, I mean, we really do give a pass to the red states as they continue to rebuild in these areas that are definitely prone toward disasters. I mentioned Florida as one, but certainly your example of the tornado is another. Too soon to say it's arson? Yeah, I mean, to conclude it formally, I would agree. Let the firefighters do the investigation without the conspiracy theories of TikTok, please. Yeah, okay, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on, just because it's on TikTok doesn't mean it's BS. I would say that, I watch a lot of history stuff on TikTok and stuff, and it's not like everything that's on TikTok is BS. So, I mean, it can be provocative and show your work. We actually, last night on the couch, as we were looking at various things that were coming in, we sniffed out some BS about the fires. So if you cross-check everything, and believe me, we try to cross-check stuff before we bring it to you on the show, it can reveal those things that are true and those things that are not. Literally a blowtorch when you get the wind blowing. Florida is about to go bankrupt, says Tammy. Almost zero private insurers. There you go. I mean, they are living the same thing. That's a red state or red governor, right? What am I supposed to do? Say that the reason that they're going bankrupt and the reason that they're unable to handle the hurricane damage is because of their COVID policy? I mean, that's essentially what they're saying here. That's DEI. It wouldn't have mattered DEI or not in this case. I mean, again, that's the problem. If every time there's a major disaster, we're going to hang all of societal's ills that we can reasonably disagree about on some failing associated with some societal issue, we're never going to get anywhere. So I watched the Corolla rant, and I thought, oh, he's right about that, but he's completely full of it about this. You know what I mean? And then I saw Jillian Michaels with the same thing, the workout fitness person, and she was saying, Adam's right about the Coastal Commission and the regulations. Yeah, it is overregulated in some ways. That wasn't germane to anything related to this incident. But all of a sudden, everybody's coming to the cameras and they fire up their podcast to make some point that might have legitimacy, but no relevance to what's going on now. Blue Spark says, if the women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy.
Girl, you just woo.
Yeah. You're right. I gotta develop some skills. I think it's too late for me. On the prisoners, I know the prisoners don't get paid much, but they volunteer to fight fires. Some of them said it's a way to earn respect and to not be treated like a prisoner for a while, says Democracy. Yeah, I see plenty of interviews. They're all over YouTube. Hassan did one, and there are a bunch more of firefighters. That's what Courtney was saying, talking about prison firefighters, how they feel as though they're given a purpose, and that matters, There they are. And we're all so grateful, We're all so grateful. And I'm grateful to each and every one of them. And Mimi says this, which Kim can check this out. I think there is some truth to this, sadly. Mimi says, unfortunately, despite the bravery of these prisoners who are qualified to be firefighters, the bravery of these prisoners who are qualified to be firefighters because they are felons, they're ineligible to be firefighters upon their release from prison. Yeah, that's what I saw. I just glanced at it earlier. It is true that you're... go ahead, Kim. I think there is some truth to that.
Yeah, that actually was the case until recently. And I think they're in the process of trying to change that policy so that the firefighters, that you learn the skill, that you'll be able to use it once you get out of jail. So at this point, I think that may still be the case, and it's a case-by-case basis as well.
Yeah. I think there are certain areas of firefighting that you are accepted from right now that you're not allowed in, but as Kim says, that is changing. I think your general proposition is true. It's just that I think that, as I said, the configuration of the fire department is such that still some prisoner firefighters can serve. It's just a question of when and how and where. So thanks for that, though. I mean, I think it's that's something that should change. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, I am looking forward to the rest of this week with the gorgeous and handsome and smart and funny Michael Short coming through. He and Kim are going to make sweet music together with Tony in the background. It's going to be pretty great. Tony laying down the jams.
Thanks, Tony.
And Tony will have hot links, and that sounds sexy, but it is just a way that you can find links to all of the different charities we spoke of today. I particularly like the GoFundMe that is that list of so many families that might need help. You can click on them, see about them, and see how you might be able to help them. Anyway, Tony's the best, and he's going to put on all the links under this video and more. Thanks, everybody, for your support of the show. And now
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Kim, love you. After Party Live next.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. In touch. See you soon. Bye-bye.